This passage was about an author and about style of writing. Let's quickly summarize the passage. Is RKG a good writer? No. Even her books for adults written under the name GR have terrible prose style. Her sentences contain missing clauses, poor construction, confused tense and point of view, imprecise descriptions, and poor word choice. From as far as back as I can remember, I've always said that RKJ isn't that great of a writer from a prose standpoint. So the author of the passage clearly thinks RKJ, whoever it is not a good writer. Ska Major does follow the standard hero's journey. So, this must be a book by that author RKJ. Does follow the standard hero's journey, so it's entertaining to read. I hope she's humble enough to admit that her fame is mostly luck. Now, we know that the author is talking about a female author, and the author of the passage says that I hope she realizes that her success is due to luck. People reply, it's yeah. She's a genius that gradually made her write more sophisticated as the books went on, so that as readers aged, the reading level and maturity of the books grew with the audience. She says, as she wrote, there are people who consider her a genius, and as this RKJ wrote, the more she wrote, she started improving. And to examine this, okay, let's be honest, says the author of the passage. It's much more likely that she's just got better as a writer as she wrote more. To examine this further, what further? Did she get better as she wrote more? Consider the novel CC by GR. Who is GR now? It's a pseudonym. It's a false name taken up by RCG while writing this novel much later in her career. It's kind of shocking to me that a major publisher will let this get through without serious edits. I was so distracted by the prose errors that I couldn't even focus on the content. She said that some people feel she got better as she wrote more, but she said take one example of a novel she wrote later in her career, that is CC by GR. That's the pseudonym she took. She said that I found the prose had so many errors that I couldn't focus on the writing. I know this isn't something most people notice, but it serves as a good reminder that RKJ is not a good writer. She's famous. Those are different things. She's a famous writer. I agree, says the author of the passage, but she's not a good writer. That's the author's opinion. To go deeper, consider this sentence, the first sentence of the CC. Though Eric's 32 years of life had seen their ups and downs, he had never before woken up in the certain knowledge that she would remember the coming day for as long as she lived. She words it so the years are the ones seeing. So the way the sentence has been structured, it isn't as if the person is seeing, but the years are doing the seeing. This is nitpicky but also confusing and imprecise. If you don't understand why, it's because only a conscious thing can see something. Also, we begin with a subordinate clause. This is by definition beginning with inessential and or unimportant information. So the modifier at the beginning is set off by a comma, so it's not important information, unimportant information. The clause tries to cram in too much information, and that's why the writing style the author of the passage doesn't like. Further, this sentence reads like a first year creative writing student attempting to impress a teacher by making things needlessly complicated. This sentence looks like it's been written by a creative writing student in the first year of her course trying to impress her teacher. It reads like a student who hasn't learned what it that is exactly how agents and publishers can tell you you're still an amateur. So it just reads as if a student has read it. This is how publishers come to know that a writer is an amateur. If this is how RKJ writes for adults, no one can say she's a good writer. This has now been definitely settled, and if anyone wants to argue otherwise, go ahead. So the author has given reasons why she considers RKJ to be not a good writer, and she says this is the reason. Her writing style is bad. She writes in a very immature way, almost like a student trying to impress a teacher, not like a mature author. And if you don't agree with me, go ahead. You've got a tough job because you have to find me something she's published that rises above this. If you want to argue she's a better writer, she's a good writer, then show me something she's published which is better than this. But I hear the pushback already. She's saying, I can already read your objections. I read the pushback, as in the resistance. One can break the rules of prose style and be a great writer. So there are many who will say that people who break the style of prose, good prose style, can also be good writers. Yes, this is the author of the passage's view. Yes, but when a great writer breaks the rules, the prose becomes better than it would have been if the rules were followed. So you're following the rules and writing, you break it only if you think that the prose becomes better. So when she says this, it's clear that she's saying in case of RKJ, that's not what happened. What happens when a great writer goes against the common rules of writing prose, as in opposed to poetry? It results in the creation of prose whose quality is better than the prose that was written when the rules are followed. Looks likely we've read something similar, we'll check. It results in the creation of prose that is much better than what we normally read every day. New rules of writing prose are created. New trends are established, and people reject such badly conceived books. So, question is a direct question. What happens when a great writer goes against the common rules of writing prose? Look at paragraph 7, right? Where I've come to paragraph 7. Let's look at it. The author has already quoted an excerpt of RKJ and said it's been written very badly. So badly that I got distracted from the theme. If this is how RKJ writes for adults, no one can say she's a good writer. This has been definitely settled. Now, if you want to argue with me, go ahead. Then he says, she says, I can understand your objections. One can break the rules of prose style and be a great writer. When can a great writer break the rules of prose style? But when a great writer breaks the rules, the prose becomes better than it would have been if the rules had been followed. So a great writer can break rules of prose, but that prose that breaks the rules of writing becomes even better than when you follow the rules of writing. This is the author's point. Let's look at which option explains this. What happens when a great writer goes against the common rules of writing? The prose becomes better, right? It results in the creation of prose whose quality is better than when you follow the rules of writing. So A is the answer. What is wrong with B? What we normally read every day. That part of it is not correct. New rules are created has not been mentioned. New trends has not been mentioned. People rejecting has not been mentioned. So the correct answer is A.